of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another edition of The Story Behind the Story. I don't know, golly, I don't know if we have too many people on this call or just what, but the audio quality is pretty tough. I hope we're coming through just loud and clear. This is, again, live Friday night, the 23rd of February. We have joining us, as always, Alex in the Bay Area. Alex Studer is with us. Alex, how are you reading this? You coming through loud?
Good evening, 5x5. Can you hear me okay?
You betcha. Sounds all like it's good. We've got a few people coming in again from the Philippines. We have Major Burdock with us, I believe, right? Major, you with us? Perhaps he muted his microphone. I'm not sure, but we have Jim Charney with us. Jim with the Goldwater. Welcome, Jim. We also have Philip with us, it looks like. We were introduced to Philip.
Oh, hi. Thanks so much, guys, by the way. It's an honor to be on.
So, is this Phil?
Yes, sir.
Great. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, Philip. Where are you broadcasting from?
Well, right now I'm here in Manila in the Philippines, but spent most of my life down in a little tiny town in Middle Tennessee. I've been an ethnobotanist, herbalist, and writer-researcher in some kind of semi-professional to professional means for about the past 17 years. And hooked up with the Goldwater sometime last summer, and it's just been, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, that's awesome. So how's life in the Philippines?
Oh, it's beautiful here. It really is. Some folks, I'm sure, would take issue with it gets a little rainy and it's always kind of hot and humid. But I mean, so is Tennessee, except for 3 to 6 weeks out of the year.
That's true enough. So, are you married? Do you have your family there, or just you?
Oh, no, just absolutely single guy for the moment. I don't know. I guess pending I was to find the right one. Yeah, I would certainly be interested in settling down. But for now, I don't know what my wife, my work would think about that.
Well, very good. Welcome, Phil. There's some beautiful Filipino gals there that are just as sweet as can be. I'm sure you're.
So I've heard, and that's the thing. I'm from the southeast of the U.S. and we're known for hospitality, friendliness, and fried chicken. Lo and behold, I came to the right place. I feel right at home.
Well, they, the fish dishes are great there. I'm a fisherman. I just love to fish, and I love to eat fish too. It's very healthy and very good, and so yeah.
Great for the brain and the heart, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So welcome, and so we'll be hitting some topics tonight. Last week we had a great show, a lot of response on that, folks. A lot of emails, a lot of listeners that weighed in on Pastor Dean Odell. I mean, yeah, this guy is a straight shooter. I mean, he shoots from the hip and tells you exactly what it is. And I submit the big problem with this world, not just America, but the world as itself, we just have lost sight of some very basic truths of creation itself. And so, yeah, we look at the entire picture as far as human relations goes. I mean, it's a pretty safe rule of thumb. You treat other people the way you like to be treated, and you probably get along just fine. That's right out of the Beatitudes, the beautiful attitudes that Jesus gave on the Mount there above Capernaum. I got to tell you, I was back in Israel 3 years ago, and that specific spot where the Beatitudes were given, that's a neat place because of the acoustics. So we're talking, a side of a mountain that you can get up on an elevation and talk, and people quite a ways down below can hear just fine without any type of microphone or amplifiers. It's kind of a neat little spot there in the world. And so yeah, we just focus on things. Dean Odell is a Christian pastor in Alabama, a southern man. He lives there right off the campus of Auburn University, and Alex has family in the neck of the woods too, so they got along just fine. So yeah, Alex.
Yes, sir, I do, and I want to follow up because we were so jam packed trying to get so much into that show. I was just so beside myself to be on the air with Pastor Dean. We forgot to mention his website, which is deanodle.org. It's DEANODLE.org. And folks, he was first introduced to me by way of his appearance in the new documentary Scientism Exposed 2. And true, I'm my hat's off to you for bringing him on the show. That's just fantastic. I just think in such a great follow-up to how we came to know Mr. Edward Hendry.
Well, indeed, and I got to tell you, following some private emails and conversations with Pastor Dean, he enjoyed the feedback he's gotten. There's been already a lot of people that have listened to the show and are new subscribers and listeners to what he's doing. His Sunday sermons are live broadcasts. You can just tune in live. There's a little small Fire and Grace church there in Alabama. It's not a huge multi-mega church, which is a problem because it's Dean's not about the money. He's about just telling the Word of God. I mean, just he, like he says, I don't edit the Bible, I just teach it, and that's an important point here. I'll tell you what he talked about Sunday. I would recommend listeners to go to deanodle.org, click on the current message that is up there for a week, okay, and then until the next one Sunday. Because what's amazing to me is he goes back in and looks at the Paleo-Hebrew figures there. Now, what's amazing is as he explains, the Paleo-Hebrew symbols for firmament, okay, that as we see in the Bible, the King James Bible and the Tyndale Bible and other original translations, we see there's symbols you see in what's called Paleo-Hebrew. That's the first early Hebrew, which would be the language or the written language of Moses in the Pentateuch, right? So those first 5 books of Moses are what's called the Pentateuch, penta meaning 5, tuch books. So the symbol, the paleo symbol for firmament is a dome with a center line, a flat center line dome. I mean, it's like, hello. And then you look at the word for horizon, and the symbol is a sun setting on the horizon on a totally flat plane. It's quite amazing what the original Paleo-Hebrew was more of hieroglyphics than anything, but wow, I've been a kind of a semi-student of Paleo-Hebrew, because what I have found is a lot of early Native American petroglyph sites, especially here in Utah and in the desert Southwest. There's a lot of similarities between these pictographs and even pictographs, which are painted on cave walls, that are, my goodness, they're Paleo-Hebrew to me, and I can pretty much read them. All right, so wow, this whole thing about the book of Hebrews, the Hebrew writing, the book of Genesis, I tell you, you can't underestimate the importance of that first chapter of Genesis and understanding the world.
Well, true. I've long maintained that the yarmulke itself and the very dome that adorns the tops of just about every Jewish synagogue there is, including additionally the Palace of Fine Arts here in San Francisco, and just about every architectural archway that is a window to many churches and school buildings such as Stanford University, a Jesuit university. These are all symbolic representations of the firmament.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. And, I wanted to talk tonight about this doggone school shooting thing. I mean, how many times do they have to rewrite the same script? It's just, it's Sandy Hook again. You got the same things cropping up, the same group of crisis actors. I also am amazed at some of the YouTube videos that went viral but were taken off. YouTube.
Yeah, I've archived many of them and uploaded them to a post that I have at the labvirus.com site. There's a pegged post there called "Florida was a PSYOP." So many of those deleted videos I have been able to preserve.
I mean, you got kids themselves that are there proving that there were Secret Service agents all over the school, and this was set up as a drill originally, and the Secret Service was involved. What is that about, Alex? What's your comments on that?
Well, I believe very strongly we have yet another state-sponsored PSYOP, which is employing many of the same crisis actors that we have seen in other events. There's this one girl in particular who keeps showing up. She was seen in Orlando. She was seen in Sandy Hook. She was seen at San Bernardino and in England with peroxided hair. And now here she is again. My hat's off to the Anons of 8chan over there, because they've really dug into this David Hogg character, and now there's a full third thread that's been going on his investigation and related topics. And there's a whole buzzing of exposing these crisis actors on social media now, and I think this is a different situation in so much that people are actually biting into this as a PSYOP, and it's becoming more mainstream within the underground community, as opposed to the others where people mostly just ridiculed you for even suggesting the idea. So it seems like we're being vindicated a little bit.
Well, I got to tell you, the information I saw on just that first evening from students themselves that took videos. The school security cam video suddenly went missing. All of these things start, come on, something's not right there at all. And why do these things seem to always happen as a drill? Okay, come on, there was a fire drill. The bells rang. The students started to exit the school, and then all hell broke loose. Okay, what's up with that? That's on school video. I mean. Oh man!
If I'm not mistaken, the bowl cut cult shooter, the guy at the church in, what was it, South Carolina, the whoever it was, Homeland Security or whoever, had planned an active shooter drill for that very day. And no, that's not the first time that Homeland Security was like, we pick this town in this state and we're going to have an active shooter drill. And in that same town and state, there's some happening like this. Like, I'm sitting here just waiting to see if it turns into Vegas again.
We have another one coming up, Phil. We got another one coming up in March, I believe, in Dallas. Let's see if I can find it here. But there's ads going out right now to solicit for, here we go, City of Dallas mass casualty incident full-scale exercise. The City of Dallas, in conjunction with the Majestic Theater, Dallas Fire Rescue, Dallas Police Department, would like to invite you to participate in our MCI full-scale exercise. All ages welcome to participate. And this is scheduled for March 18th, coming up.
Now, we're just going to have to keep an eye open and see if in the next week or two, you remember how like a lot of the folks who said that whose story conflicted, oh no, there were multiple shooters at multiple hotels. A lot of those folks just ended up kind of dropping like flies over the weeks to come. So yeah, that'll be something to keep an eye on for certain as well.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a lot of impetus here in conservative Utah that was never the case in the newspapers, the talk shows, radio and TV. Whereas, like Sandy Hook was a tragedy, but there was nobody really talking about gun control. But now it's like even the most conservative talk shows are saying, well, it's time now we do some gun control. I mean, it's like,
I say gun control is using both hands and hitting your target.
Well, surely, and so we have the Trumpster coming out and saying his sound bites. Well, let's arm and train the teachers to pack heat, and that's really causing a lot of eyebrow raising here in my home state. They're saying, really, the teachers unions are weighing in that's the most ridiculous thing, yada yada yada. Because look, where was the Florida schools security officer? Where was he, taking a nap with his gun? I mean, he obviously didn't engage the shooter and didn't return fire because he probably thought it was a drill. Maybe
right. I think there were a couple of folks who were interviewed, a student and her father, who brought that up, that the deputy stayed outside the whole time. Or yeah, I mean that and some other issues like the fact that I think there were like 39 instances where someone had been called and told, hey, this kid looks like a stick of dynamite about to blow, and nobody did anything. Just down the line, the chain of command, the system failed this kid, and as a result, we had this tragedy.
Well, I submit the system didn't fail because the system did exactly what the upper level echelon wanted to see happen. That's my take on this thing.
True, honestly.
So, Alex, what's your take? Real casualties on this one?
I'm skeptical. Every time we've dug into this before, the patterns have been the same. And in the words of Wolfgang Halbig, who's been investigating Sandy Hook since it happened, he brought out 5 points that were in common between the Parkland and the Sandy Hook events. Number 1, no trauma helicopters. Number 2, no EMT allowed to enter the school. Number 3, triage area set up 300 yards away from school. Number 4, ambulances set up 300 yards away from the school. Number 5, bodies left overnight in school. And I will add, number 6, we never saw the bodies and we never saw any coroner reports. They rushed right to bury them, and no one ever saw any physical evidence that proved anyone actually died. They just repeated a narrative, and no one thought to really question it. Well, I stand to question it because I smell a very well-organized PSYOP yet again. There's a piece going out, circulating right now that's entitled "The Crisis Actors of the Parkland, Florida School Shooting PSYOP." Again, I have it linked my post on this subject at labvirus.com. It's pegged right at the top, along with many photographs that I've collected of these crisis actors gathering for a group photo right before they go out to conduct this acting job in front of the camera as fake witnesses and so forth. This guy David Hogg being one of them. There are many other anomalies that seem consistent with other past events, such as the notifications on social media postings about certain things that were posted before the event actually took place. This happens yet again in this instance. Finally, we get to the question of, well, okay, let's just assume, yeah, we're on to another psyop here. Okay, what's the objective? Why? What's the motive? And I, for so long, had been, thinking, okay, well, obviously it's the same one as before: gun control, because that's what the left is yelling for, and that's immediately what they rushed to with Senator Feinstein's, and all this yammering in this faked CNN town hall that occurred last night with obviously scripted questions that they were handing the kids. We have photographs of the emailed questions they were giving the kids. But I am now changing my take on why, because of what Trump said at CPAC today. They are now focusing on mental health. And True, you and I have talked long over the issues of the radical communist godless left authoring this demonic book known as the DSM-4. And with mental health being an issue and going into disarm people for reasons of mental illness, who's to say that one cannot be declared mentally ill simply for believing in God?
Well, let me tell you. Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Oh yeah, no, I was just agreeing that the dangers of politicizing mental health. Speaking of an idea that's crazy, you guys know that it was Parkland Memorial Hospital where John F. Kennedy, Jack Ruby, and Lee Harvey Oswald were pronounced dead, right? I mean, once again, as soon as they passed that law, though, just mentioning something like that in the same breath as talking about what may be a manufactured psyop would be enough to get you locked up in a Guantanamo type establishment.
Well, let me tell you how this is spinning out to me. As you know, Alec, you haven't been in on all of these emails, the debate that's going. Some of Jim Fetzer's colleagues. Okay, I'm not.
No, but I've been thoroughly engaged in the ones that we've been having, and I look forward to our talking about it in a future show. It's wonderful stuff we're talking about. Thank you.
What I'm saying though, there's this group of about 20 different philosophy professors now. Whereas Jim Fetzer is a retired 30-year plus college major university philosophy professor. And remember what he said when he came on the show? He was so intrigued about what we were talking about the so-called flat earth, right? I hate to use that word. It's biblical cosmology is what I call it. But the issue was, as Fetzer brought in his team with Jesse Kozlowski and the other select philosophy professors, immediately the ad hominem attacks began. You guys are just flat out crazy. You're psycho. You're nuts. All of this. So we've progressed past that. Kozlowski's fallen out because we exposed him for what he's really fraudulently doing. We have others that have joined into the discussion because this Sterling fellow at the Evergreen College, he's brought in about 25 other professors of philosophy around the country with him. Now, so I just laid out, I says, look, you guys can debate this all you want about who's crazy and who's not. All I have ever said is show me how water adheres to a gradient curvature. I mean, just show me. It shouldn't be tough to do if the Earth is really what you're saying it is. Now, there's got to be some physics professor out there that can actually show a model how it works. Until then, I got to go with what I can see, and water is flat and level, guys. So guess what happened just last week, Alex? So I deleted it because I was so mad. And this group, it's with Pat Shannon, who was a guest on the show. This really spooky guy named Reinhold. He actually sent out a blast post hammering me and others like me who were so crazy that he said these are the type of people that's shooting up places like Parkland. Okay, they're and
oh yeah, flat earthers are the most dangerous people in the world. You bet. We're gun-toting crazies.
Hendry got really upset at that. He said, "This is where you draw the line on this," because he actually drew the line of our thinking. It would be the type of unhinged loonies that would go shoot people, not only schools but movie theaters and whatever. And he actually drew the parallels to, I forget the particulars, the school drama production where The Hunchback of Notre Dame was canceled because of a race issue. Okay.
True. I've already had this happen to me. I didn't share this story with you, but I will now. On a workplace, on a job, I was essentially threatened by someone else for having expressed a controversial view in such a manner and treated in this very way that you're describing now.
Okay, but let me just explain where it's going. This group of professors are part of a group of a larger group of educators. We're not only talking college level, but high school levels, which again, the Board of Regents, all of this that sets the curriculum up, right? They want this to be part of the FBI's broader range of gun control permits. In other words, if you have, again, because of your things you might have posted or done radio talk shows like we have done, if you have this flat out crazy, they're calling it nutty crazy ideas, you should be targeted by the FBI to come and confiscate guns. This is where it's heading to me. I said, whoa, my goodness. Wow. Because see, I'm just saying I don't believe it one way or another, really, because I just have to believe the Bible. That's all I've been ever saying. Is look, the Bible to me now is literal. This is what Dean Odell has said last week. What the Bible says in not only Genesis 1, but it's the theme throughout the text that it talks about, like with Job 38:14, the earth is like a clay under a signet ring that's flattened. Okay, this is Bible. So what they're really saying is you got crazy uber right-wing zealots that we need to target. And that's the danger for this thing to me. It's like, holy mackerel, talk about 1984 happening and the thought police coming in. Oh, it's, wow. What can I say?
It's the emperor's new clothes on steroids.
It is. And so to have this crease in the story, okay, the PSYOP story. And look at what Obama said many times. We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. And the way they mock it completely being, those people are just nuts and crazy. And I gotta say, in deference to Dominique and that whole conference back in North Carolina, the so-called Flat Earth Conference, you know what, Alex? There are crazies that are tied to people like Mark Sargent that I think are PSYOP shields planted in this for that very reason.
Oh, have you seen the way he and his little sidekick girlfriend dress when they go to these things? They intentionally look silly so as to mock this whole movement. And the things that they have been caught saying, oh, you betcha, I'm right there with you on that.
So I think this is where this is heading, because there's...
You guys remember Cass Sunstein, right? Cognitive infiltration. Yeah, I do believe it's been a concerted effort. Like it was going on for a lot longer than before Cass Sunstein, when they announced that, so we're going to get into the conspiracy groups. We're going to infiltrate the groups, to infiltrate the conspiracies, to infiltrate the minds of the people who subscribe to these ideas. Yeah, there's, psyops and disinformation. The disinformation psyops is nothing new.
Well, yeah,
But
this is
as you
controlled
guys know,
opposition. This is what.
Yeah,
gave
when they
rise to
come
guys
right
like
out and
Alex
say,
Jones.
"Oh, we're going to work on cognitive infiltration," it's when they come out and say, "So this is what they're doing." When they've been doing it for decades, we all know that. But when they come out and say it, that's like level 2 right there.
Well, I got to tell you, tomorrow morning I'm scheduled. The guy that set this up has this like disappeared. I don't know if it's still on or not. I'm supposed to go meet with a group of astronomers and physicists from the university. They've agreed to meet because the debate's been ongoing with this friend Jeff, and I don't know. His phones aren't connected. I've been trying to make sure it's still on. All I'm wanting to do with this group of astronomers and Copernicus, spinning ball earthers group is to show, listen, okay, you've got Copernicus's numbers, you've got the trigonometry of Newton, you've got all these numbers, okay, that are theoretical. That's fine. So you can explain, how the Earth rotates, explain how the sun is fixed, but it looks like it's rising, and it's because the Earth's spinning. I understand all those numbers, but have you ever stopped to think that there is a whole set of numbers by a guy named Ptolemy in the 1st century AD, that his numbers are based on Euclidean geometry, and he took his measurements there at Alexandria, Egypt, where the Nile River flows into the Mediterranean? Are you aware of his papers and his set of numbers? Because you know what? I submit that Ptolemy's numbers are more observable and real and accurate than Copernicus's ever was. And you know what? These astronomers and these physicists, the response back to my friend who put this out to him was, we'd like to hear what Dr. Ott has to say about it, because you know what? They never know about it. They don't know about it. They have never even heard about Ptolemy. And that's amazing to me. These guys are physicists. See, you hide the set of numbers that you don't want into the education system. And, there's a reason why for 1,400 years until Copernicus, the people believed the Earth was indeed a flat plane. Because why? Because you can measure water, okay? Flat out, that's the answer. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs of the edges and the ends of Antarctica, where the dome is or is not. I don't know the answers to those things, guys, but I do know one thing. I can measure water and the circumference of the arc that's not there. Okay, I've done that. I've done that with a telescope and other measurement tools, and it satisfies me. There's no other explanation that 66% of the Earth is ocean, is seawater. I mean, that's a given. Everybody knows that. So is water an arc, or is it a flat plane? I mean, that's where it all hinges on to me. I'm sorry. Show me. I mean, I'd love to see it if you can make water adhere to any type of gradient arc. But I don't know if this is going to be on tomorrow or where it's going to be held. If it's for sure, I'm just waiting to hear. So it's going to be interesting. Probably be labeled as a really crazy crackpot that the FBI have better watch out for me. I mean, they already have files thanks to our Bobsey twins and all of their reports against us being such anti-Jew, neo-Nazi, white supremacists, which is not true. But they sure make their case. They filed all kinds of protests and things to the ADL and the FBI. I know that for a fact.
All you have to do to get labeled an anti-Semite is call out Zionist war crimes and times that they've, violated the Geneva Convention. That's all it takes to be. And you can be Jewish. You can be Jewish and call out Zionist war crimes that many members of the world, community find deplorable. But that's all it takes to be called an anti-Semite these days,
Phil,
pretty much.
Phil, I got to take exception with what you just said.
Oh no.
Yeah, I do. I got to say that all you need to be called labeled an anti-Semite is to simply tell the truth.
I actually have a rubber stamp that says, and true, you know where I got it. It says, too much. What? Oh gosh, what does it say? Too much truth is anti-Semitic.
And I had some really good in-depth discussions over the years on this radio show with people like Dr. Macau, who's Jewish. Mm-hmm. I've talked with Dr. El Hayek. You know the story with that. 2 different stations. We set up the El Hayek interview because he is so busy. Actually months ahead of time, 3 or 4 months ahead of time. And so leading up to it, we would tell about what we're going to discuss. And coming up to the time of the interview, Dr. El Hayek is the geneticist, the Jewish geneticist at Johns Hopkins. I mean, this guy wrote the book on genetic studies, right? And he did this large scale 5-year study of Israel and the bloodlines based on the baseline bone studies, okay, that they pulled out. And my goodness, he said the Ashkenazim Jews, so-called, they have none of the bloodline characteristics of the ancient tribe of Judah.
Not Hebrews at all, exactly.
Not Hebrew at all. They're imposters who basically proved everything that another Jew named Arthur Kessler wrote in his book,
the 13th tribe.
13th tribe. And so whenever we had Dr. Hayek on the show, guess what? The show was canceled. I mean, the show was dropped from the network. I mean, talk about talking about truth. And Dr. Hayek's been blackballed, and his paper is, he wishes he never even had the study done. It's been that devastating to him. See, the bigger the lie is, the more opposition you will have when you expose the lie. So right up there with the Earth's shape, okay, actual shape, right up there on the same par is the big lie that today's nation of Israel is the descendants of Abraham. That's a big lie, because it's got the churches, the so-called Christians, just totally eating that up. I got to tell you also, I have a really controversial, explosive, hot book that I got in possession of in 2002. The story's quite amazing. I want to share this with listeners. You look up on the internet, the last name of the author is Geddes, Geddes. First name Michael Geddes. He was a Roman Catholic missionary to Ethiopia, okay? And while there in Ethiopia, he ran across the Christian sect there, the early Christian sect that had been fighting against the Roman Church since the days of Constantine. Now, this is an amazing history, and he was able to document their written language, their history, and so he wrote a book called The History of the Christian Church in Ethiopia. The book's called The History of the Church in Ethiopia. He wrote the manuscript back in the year 1670, okay? When word got out to the Vatican that he was doing this work, he became marked for death. So he got political asylum, just like Arthur Kessler did, right, into England, the UK, under the Protestant church there in the 17th century. Now, by royal edict, King Henry, for 50 years, all of the printing presses in England for 50 years until the year 1695, from 1645 until 1695, 50 years, it was absolutely a criminal offense, punishable by death, for any printing press in England to print anything else but the King James authorized Bibles. Do you realize that? They could, for 50 years, the printing presses did nothing but print out Bibles, 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 by order of the king. This order was for 50 years. The first book coming off those presses that were all set for the King James Bibles was Michael Getty's History of the Church in Ethiopia in the year 1695. Guess what? I have a copy of that 1695 book. It is one of the most prized books of all Christianity, folks, because you see the Roman Church hated that book worse, or as bad as, if not worse, than the King James Bible, because people, the common folk now were exposed to the fact that everything that the papacy and the Roman Church was declaring was all fabricated lies. And the truth of the matter is the history of the Christian church in Ethiopia cannot be overlooked. What happened was, the Queen of Sheba, we read about her in 1 Kings in the Old Testament. The Queen of Sheba comes in and brings all this tribute to Solomon, and Solomon is just Ethiopia is wealthy in gold and precious jewels and gems. So Queen of Sheba brings all this tribute to this wonderfully wise, powerful Solomon, and she has a little tryst with him. Okay, when the Queen of Sheba went back to Ethiopia, she was impregnated. She was carrying Solomon's child, which was a son. All right, now this is all documented, and Michael Geddes explains that the lineage of Judah, the kings of Judah, were positioned for safekeeping in Ethiopia. In fact, the Ark of the Covenant was placed in Ethiopia there. It's not in the old temple that was destroyed. No, it's there in Ethiopia. And when the Messiah came, the priestly class that were watching for him, looking for him intently, was there in Ethiopia, and they had a core Christian ministry, including Paul, the apostle there. This is all an amazing story that's documented with ancient history. This is all in Michael Geddes' book. So when I got this book, it's quite amazing. There's a rare manuscript dealer worldwide called Philadelphia Rare Books and Manuscript, PRB&M. Well, I had heard about this from a lot of researchers that are researching the Catholic Church and the Jesuit order, because a lot of writers that are exposing the Jesuit and Catholic paganism, they all quoted Geddes' book, but nobody had a book in their library because it's just like very, very rare. The Inquisition, the Catholics burned as many as they could get their hands on. And so if anybody in the world could find a copy of Geddes' book, it was PRB&M. So I requested a copy. I'm not a wealthy man. I could pay up to $1,000, I said, and they laughed at me and says, "Well, that just may not ever happen. If it is found, it's going to be worth six figures at least for anybody that has it in their library, if it is even to be found." Well, I put the request in 1996 or 5 because I was doing a lot of interviews in the radio and referencing Geddes' book. When I moved up here from southern Utah to northern Utah in 2001, I just got settled in, and in 2002 I got a text and a phone call from PRB&M, says, "We found your book. It came into our possession out of a extensive library in South Africa. And so, do you want the book?" Yes. Oh, bingo. So I had the price. It was already obtained. It was an estate. They didn't care. They cut the $1,000. I got this book in. And immediately, the PRB&M put it out there that the book had been placed. And then they called me with offers for the book. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking I thought I won the lottery, okay? Started out with a $180,000 bid, then it went up to as high as $500,000. And I'm sitting there, wow, I can make some pretty good return on investment here with this. But then I got thinking, wait a minute, I got to find out who wants it. So after signing some contracts of non-disclosure and that, I found out who was doing the wanting, and Georgetown, Stanford, Jesuits wanted this in the worst way. When I refused their offers, I got a little bit, shall we say, paranoid that things might happen to get this book away from me. So what I did is I had a professional photographer come in and photo scan every single page of this 1695 text. Okay, this is almost 100 years before the Declaration of Independence. Okay, this is one of the rarest and most precious books of all time, as far as I'm concerned. And I sent it out. I got over 250 CD-ROM copies of this and sent it out to Christian libraries all over the country. And now, if you Google up that, you can see that the facsimiles have been printed. And back when I first did this in 2002, nobody hardly knew anything about it. I couldn't find the text. Now this text is all over the internet. So check it out. This is one of the things that I can lay claim to doing that might have helped. Of course, now that the book is out, there's no way I'm going to get anywhere probably more than $10,000 for it, but except for the antiquity value. But no, the Catholic papacy and what's called P6 Freemasonry. These guys, this is the organized mafia, folks. They kill people over much less than this. So I bring this out to tell you what the powers that be would like you to believe about the Pope and Roman Catholic lies. This has got this is nowhere near God's church. They're not Christian at all. They're pagan. They have been since their inception. They are heliocentric sun worshipers, folks. And when I'm bringing this out, Alex, because I'm sharing this with a group of local Christians that are African American Christians, and they're like, they never heard of this stuff that their ancestors in Ethiopia, in fact, going back that far, you're looking at much of the ancestry of all of Black Africa comes out of this group, out of North Africa, that came out from Egypt through the Queen of Sheba. The African American people, to me, are so spiritually centered. They're the best of the worst. They're either the best of the best, spiritually speaking, or and I refer to Dr. Ben Carson as one of my good heroes, a man who's reached the top of his profession in many ways, and yet in the ghettos where they've been exploited by the NAACP and other, again, there are Jewish operations, folks, from the get-go. You have such a race division and race war brewing. And it's by design. They want this fighting. Black Lives Matter. All this stuff, go out and take care of that cracker whitey. You see, wow, it's manipulation going on here that I just shake my head with wonder at how it works. I really do.
It's real divide and conquer, isn't it?
It is. And you have to see past that and see who's instigating it. Going back into the Civil War, who instigated the South to rise up against the North over states' rights? Who was the people doing the instigating? And you look and see who does it. Who brought us the institution of slavery in this Deep South anyway? It was Jewish slave traders, folks. I mean, it's just, wow. Instead of having the Southern economy being agrarian that's based on price and demand, it became so dependent upon the slave institution that it became a matter of survival for the southern states to rise up for states' rights and have this incredible civil war where the southern Christians fight against northern Christians. I did a presentation on this. Here's Robert E. Lee, the great Southern general, I mean, the best military mind in the U.S. at the time, he didn't go anywhere without he had a tent full of pastors and ministers that went out to the men. Okay, when you see that he would never even go into battle unless he had 24 hours of deep prayer beforehand. You know, these Christian ministers are praying to have victory over the northern troops, which are parading to battle him of the Republic, and they're having the Christian pastors pray for their victory too. You see, 650,000 dead Christians basically, and who's laughing all the way to the bank on this one? You know, the anti-Christians are.
Rothschilds.
Yeah, I mean, it's like every war. I wrote this in my papers, Alex, the Righteous Blood series of papers that I wrote. This is how they conquer. They get the Hegelian dialectic worked up, where they have Christians who should be brothers. In fact, even brothers fought against brothers, fathers against sons in that civil war. I mean, it had to be. Well, I look back at what Abraham Lincoln, when he was debriefed by the Tsar, okay, when he had the visit from the Tsar in 1862, and the Tsar of Russia's secret police gave him a special intelligence report on who was fomenting this on both sides, and he sent a special similar notice to Jefferson Davis down in the South. Don't be misled by who's orchestrating these things. Let's stop it. This is ridiculous. One of the reasons I think that the Tsar was marked for the Bolshevik takeover was because of the influence on Jefferson Davis in the South and Lincoln in the North to get them to basically not fight each other to extinction, because the agenda was to have complete annihilation of the Christian nation. It didn't happen. There was Russian influence. Where's the FBI? You know, hey, look at the Russian influence and what happened in 1863. Okay, wow. I gotta just, we're kind of walking along a line here, but I see the same thing happening with the manipulation of public opinion in so many different areas. You know, Alex, this, you know what we're talking about here. I mean, there's a segment of people that are now believing, and I got to tell you, I've debated this with other radio talk show hosts over the years, okay, who called me out and said, look, you know, you're exposing the problem of the Jews. Why don't you believe that Hitler was this great, wonderful guy that did all? I said, whoa, look at the big picture. Adolf Hitler was a manipulated pawn. Okay, he did his job. When the dust settled of World War II, 60+ million Christians lay dead. This was the agenda all along, to fight a two-pronged, a two-front war, when the German people were flat out massacred because of it. Okay? No, Hitler was not a good guy. He just flat out wasn't. He was funded into power. He accepted the aid of the Warburg Rothschild Jewish cartel of America. The transfer of wealth, I mean real wealth, gold and precious metals to the Third Reich, caused in no small part was the constriction of currency in America that caused the Great Depression, 1929. The wheels are put into motion to start this all the way through the 30s. As America reveled in the Great Depression, at the same years we were having this massive unemployment, we have Adolf Hitler riding the industry, making Germany super great again because of the transfer of capital. And at the end of the conflict, you know, America is in debt up to their eyeballs to the Jewish banking cartel for the war bonds they had to sell and be indebted to. The Axis powers were in ruin as well. There's always money to be made in rebuilding the countries, whether it's Germany whether it's Italy, whether it's Japan, and see at the end of the war, look who wins. Look who's stronger and greater than ever, and it's that cartel. And that's what you have to look at, folks. You really do. And so now we're in a situation where people's thoughts are even criminalized. What you think and what you express. Can't have that. You're crazy. Hey, we're gonna take a break. We'll be right back. We have Bill in the Philippines. Bill in the Philippines, developing the Bay Area. We'll have more on the page. So stay tuned. Don't go. This is the story behind the story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
Ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
and I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Join me weekdays for my new show, Tell Chris Joe. This is going to be a problem show brought to you live from Kensington. Thursdays, I'm dealing with hot topics, heated debate, what's new around the world, and ring-ins to discuss listeners' problems and offering considered and heartfelt solutions. So join me, Chris Hart, for Tell Chris Joe. Stop what you're doing, grab a cup of tea, and coming live from Kensington. Relax, let me entertain you with a coffee bar online. Listeners' very personal problems. So that's Thursdays, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. See you there. It's going to be lots of fun.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it, I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Looking for a nightcap to fill your listening needs? Come join us on Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, right here on Revolution Radio. Monday through Friday for 3 hours a night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we will take you down the supernatural path. From ET contact to the paranormal and all of the spiritual, cryptid, and conspiracy stories in between. You can find us right here on Revolution Radio, at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at spacedoutradio, and on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Spaced Out Radio. It's a night of talk and interaction. Are you experienced?
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host. Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another edition of The Story Behind the Story. I don't know, golly, I don't know if we have too many people on this call or just what, but the audio quality is pretty tough. I hope we're coming through just loud and clear. This is, again, live Friday night, the 23rd of February. We have joining us, as always, Alex in the Bay Area. Alex Studer's with us. Alex, how are you reading this? You coming through loud?
Good evening, 5x5. Can you hear me okay?
You betcha. Sounds all like it's good. We've got a few people coming in again from the Philippines. We have Major Burdock with us, I believe, right? Major, you with us? Perhaps he muted his microphone. I'm not sure, but we have Jim Charney with us. Jim with the Goldwater. Welcome, Jim. We also have Philip with us, it looks like. We were introduced to Philip.
Oh, hi. Thanks so much, guys, by the way. It's an honor to be on.
So, is this Phil?
Yes, sir.
Great. So, yeah, we've tell us a little bit about yourself, Philip. Where are you broadcasting from?
Well, right now I'm here in Manila in the Philippines, but spent most of my life down in a little tiny town in Middle Tennessee. I've been an ethnobotanist, herbalist, and writer-researcher in some kind of semi-professional to professional means for about the past 17 years. And hooked up with the Goldwater sometime last summer, and it's just been, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, that's awesome. So, how's life in the Philippines?
Oh, it's beautiful here. It really is. Some folks, I'm sure, would take issue with it gets a little rainy and it's always kind of hot and humid. But I mean, so
I won't. I don't know if he wants his last name out. Jeff is the fellow that set up this meeting with me tomorrow. I hadn't heard from him. Tried phone numbers that I used to get through to him on. He heard us on the radio. He's listening to the radio tonight. He says, I gotta call True and let him know. So he did. The meeting is still on for tomorrow, and he kind of wanted to call in. If Mr. Rowe,
Hello.
There's Jeff.
How you doing?
Hey, how you are a troublemaker. That's all I can say.
I know. I enjoy every minute of it too.
I know you do. Well, thanks for listening in tonight, Jeff, because I mean, I was planning on it, but I don't know what time. We're talking about 9 o'clock tomorrow, or
10 o'clock tomorrow.
10 o'clock. Now, will I be able to tap into a big screen to put
Well, there's a whiteboard down there. It's electronic whiteboard. I don't know exactly how it works, but there's a whiteboard in there, and you have to have that erasable type marker pen, that type of thing you can write on. But that's the only thing that's in there.
Okay, well, I'll come in. Let's meet you there tomorrow, about a half hour before. Let me get it.
Yeah.
I have a Macintosh, a MacBook Air that I want to hook up to show some things. I don't know how many people will be there, but like I told you, I've been contacted by some folks at the Alt Planetarium. They want to have some people there, and I've had some interaction with them the last couple of weeks. I'm just blown away, Jeff, that these guys are part of the university system and they really don't know anything about Ptolemy. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
Wow. Just. I don't know. Is it by design? What do you think?
I think it probably is. I've been talking to a lot of people this week about telling people about it. And the response has been absolutely amazing. They absolutely think I'm absolutely crazy, and they're having a ball picking on me. And they would not waste any of their time to hear such dribble. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. The subject seems to scare people. Absolutely scares them.
Well, see, that's the thing. People ask, well, what does it even matter if we're on a ball or whether we're a flat plane? I mean, come on, really? You're going to fall off the edge there, you crazy nutcase. I mean, well, it does because it goes back to biblical truth or lack thereof. Okay, yeah. If we're on a spinning ball, the bottom line is, Jeff, throw the Bible away because it's outmoded garbage, right? And we don't have, because there's, God, this mysterious man in the sky. No, he doesn't exist. And so what are you left in the what's left in the vacuum? You have Aleister Crowley and the other folks, do what thou wilt is a whole of the law. In other words, make yourself God, make yourself the center of the universe, and that's what fills the void. And that's the problem.
I agree.
Okay, so that's the only reason why I'm exposing this, because last week, I don't know if you heard Pastor Odel's show or not last week. I think it was pretty much radio gold. He's such a good interview.
Here.
And I just got to say, he said, listen, more atheists, more avowed atheists and New Age witchcraft dealers are coming to Christ because of this topic than anything else in 30 years of ministry. Because it is
a great topic to get people to start to think if they'll just stop for a minute and think.
That's the point. I'm going to show them tomorrow. I'll put on that blackboard. I'll tell you a little sneak preview. Okay, we'll show the Ptolemy and Euclidean geometry that the gradient curve of the arc over, let's say, 4,200 miles is over 1.1 million feet. Do you realize that? I mean, you do the mathematical formula. When you have a large distance like 4,200 miles, I mean, you got a huge amount of gradient drop in that time, okay? So just look at what Ptolemy did as measuring the flow of the Nile River, okay? The Nile starts out in the highland, clear down in almost central Africa, as it starts out at 3,700 feet in elevation and flows 4,200 miles to dump out at the top in Alexandria, Egypt, into the Mediterranean Sea. Now he saw this and measured, and there were a lot of people at the time that were saying, well, we think the Earth might be round because look what happens out in the ocean. Well, the sun goes down on the Mediterranean, so it's going around a sphere, and we see ships go off and disappear. They're not falling off the face of a flat Earth. They're disappearing, so it's got to be a ball. So Ptolemy used mathematics and Euclidean geometry, which was pioneered in 300 BC, and said, no, this is not a ball because water does not adhere to a gradient. There's no way that the Nile River can take that 4,200 miles of drop of a curved Earth, which equates to this massive amount of elevation feet, and the water would not flow that way. It would not flow uphill from point A to point B on the gradient. It can't. And that's just one river. The Mississippi River is another one. You can measure the distance from New Orleans port at 0 elevation up to Baton Rouge at 83 miles up at 53 feet of elevation. There's 83 miles of curve. You're talking 4,800 feet of drop in just 83 miles. Okay.
Wow.
There's no way that Mississippi River can flow uphill to enter into that gradient curve. Come on, people, think about it. I mean, it's like, oh my God. And so when you read Ptolemy, when you understand why he said this is why water is observable, and through the angles of geometry, which Euclidean geometry, geo means earth, metry measurement. The angles show that this can't be anything but a flat plane, period. And Ptolemy's reasoning won the day for 1,400 years, see? So what makes the difference, Jeff, that we see in Copernicus? Why does he come out with another set of numbers? And it's so, what is it that's been so promoted that Ptolemy and his observations have fallen off the face of the flat Earth? I mean, why are they so ignored? And when so people in academia don't even understand, don't even know about it, blows me away.
They just get locked into their little paradigm, and they're just regurgitating things that they've heard. Not that they've really thought about it. They're just regurgitating what they've heard.
And that's true. And so when you stop to think, it's such a splinter in the brain. Like the Matrix movie. You want a splinter in your brain there, Neo? Take the red pill or take the blue pill and go, wake up. But see, this is the red pill to me. It's like, because if you see the reasons for the heliocentrism, when you see the Vatican doing this, that Copernicus was an agent of the Vatican, as was Newton, as was Kepler, okay? These are agents of the Roman Catholicism, which is heliocentric pagan sun god worshipping from the get-go. Look at Constantine.
As was also Adolf, we're learning.
Yeah, so look at this. Constantine was a pagan sun worshiper, folks, and he didn't change it. He just amalgamated the pagan sun worshipping and built St. Peter's Basilica and all this the Renaissance art. But he conquered and shed blood under the sign of the cross. Well, doggone it. You got to look at the origins of this. And so when we talk about Helios, see, Helios is Greek for sun god. That's what it means. The word Helios is not the sun. It's the sun god. Okay? So heliocentrism is that the sun god is the center of all creation, that the Big Bang, you see, all the Big Bang was put out by a Roman Catholic priest, a Jesuit priest, and that's what is being taught all the way across the universities for decades, for a century, actually. You see, it all began with this massive, gigantic Big Bang, boom, and the sun was created first, and millions of years after the sun was created, this gaseous mass that spewed off of the centrifugal force of the gaseous matter of the sun created the planets in our solar meaning sun system. Oh my goodness. And how do we know this? Because we have mathematicians who theoretically showed the distance of 96 million miles from Earth to the sun. Yet I ask, how do they know that? Did they travel to the sun to get burned up to find how close they could get? It's theoretical numbers, folks. It just is.
They took an Uber and just parked there for a minute with their head, and took measurements and came back.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I forgot about Uber. You're right. That's exact. They had no. Elon Musk's great grandfather built a SpaceX. We didn't know about this. It was it was in black and white.
True. Interesting that you're talking about Helios and its true meaning. Do you remember the animated film I, Pet Goat 2?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a very foretelling animated film. I'll forward it to you later, called I, Pet Goat 2, and it's very, very well done. Lots of symbology embedded into this, brain teaser of an animated film. But its creator is a company called Helios.
There you go. Jeff, well, thanks for coming on and listening in tonight. I'm glad we were able to connect. I'm sure looking forward to this tomorrow. It's going to be fun. We'll just smile, and they'll think we're completely nuts. What do you think?
It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. There's no doubt about that.
I wonder how many people will just get up and storm out, just say these guys have lost their mind. Because
there has been a few. We had one of the guys down there, probably a couple of months ago, that asked me about Sandy Hook, that if I thought that it was a psyops, and I said absolutely, and he got mad and they said, I'm not listening to this anymore, and he got up, backed up his papers, and walked out. The darnest thing. And this guy's normally pretty open. He likes to talk about the Federal Reserve. He knows a little bit about the Federal Reserve, and I thought he could handle it, but he couldn't even handle that.
Well, I'll bring a couple of copies of Edward Henry's book that I have. I'll let I've got a couple. I'll give you. Did I give you a copy of his book already?
Yeah, you did. You did give me a copy, and I've lent it out to a number of people, and I've lost track of who the last person was that had it.
Oh my goodness! Because I tell you, this is indeed the biggest lie on earth. Think about it. Everything hinges on this, because without the heliocentric model, you cannot have Darwinian model having any traction at all. You need the billions of years for this primordial soup to brew, you see, and all this. Yeah. So it really is the linchpin of all these other anti-biblical, anti-Christian ideals, see. So there's a reason why the universities are pumping this. People are so deluded when they suck into this heliocentric model. First of all, you're right, Jeff. People don't really think about it. It's not.
That's right. It's the human being seems to be, when they hear something from a perceived voice of authority, they almost always automatically believe it, and they won't go any farther with the thinking about it from that point.
Exactly. And so, wow, because if we question this, we have to question basically everything that the education system has been programming us with. You see?
That's right. It is very big. It's like what Ayn Rand said when she said, your rulers hold you by your innocence, which cannot grasp the depth of their evil.
Exactly.
We're held on that a lot.
And this is why
I hear people, when I talk about 9/11 or different things like that, they talk about no one would do such an evil thing. They just couldn't do such an evil thing. Our leaders wouldn't do things like that. That turns them right off because of that. They just cannot grasp the concept that someone could be that evil.
It's not the leaders per se. The leaders are just puppets, and they're not really. They're just letting it happen. It's the people above them, the Club of Rome, the CFR. These folks are flat out Satanists, and they hate life. To them, 5,000 human lives is like swatting a fly. It's their mindset, Jeff.
But to carry this off, they still have to have their minions down below them that take the orders.
Oh, sure.
That's the part that's absolutely insane. Why people will go that far. It's amazing what people will do to preserve a paycheck.
That plus the reputations, because most of them are black. They're black. They're what you call it. They have some photographs hidden away. They can lose their whole career and everything. And they've
got everybody covered.
Blackmailed. Yeah.
Sure.
So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow, Jeff. Thanks for calling in.
We'll see you tomorrow. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I hope
see ya.
we have enough room to move around in the standing room, only a little place we're going to be. But hey,
we'll go out. We'll extend on out into the other area there if we have to. We'll make it work out.
If it's something they really want to explore, let's have more than one meeting, because this is a multifaceted diamond.
I think that's what'll happen if it tweaks a lot of people and they get really interested. They'll definitely want to. They'll want to expand this, and they'll tell other people about it, and we can turn it into a big deal. In fact, we'll have to start using that big room at your place to do it.
We can do that too. Well, God bless you, Jeff. Appreciate your quest for truth and just sharing this with. And it's okay to be a fool, like Pastor Dean said. The Bible says the wisdom of God is foolishness to men. It flat out is. So they'll go, you're a bunch of fools in there. No. The Bible is an anchor. You can hang your whole house on it, really, truly. So, okay, we'll see you tomorrow, Jeff. Thanks for.
Oh, you bet. See you. Thanks. Yeah, bye-bye.
Buddy. Okay. Oh, golly. So tomorrow is going to be fun. We'll, if we get attacked or the FBI is notified, you'll know why. Can't have these crazy people talking about a flat Earth. Are you crazy? What is this? See. Man, it's not flat Earth, folks. It's a biblical cosmology, because the sun, you see, is moving. It has a circuit. That's clearly, and like we said last week, the Genesis account is very clear. Light was created first before the sun. The earth was actually created, and the water was separated out through a firmament before the sun was even created in the fourth day. And like you said, Alex, what on the earth was this? What on earth was the earth orbiting around, and the sun was even created to the fourth day? It's biblical cosmology, folks.
Bingo. And I've accordingly changed all of my associated links to now reflect the new terminology, which I have gleefully adopted. Biblical cosmology is where it's at.
Yeah, because this is your Mark Sargents, your Shields, and there's a whole chapter in Henry's book about the inevitable Shields. They're going to be put in there for a very, very reason. They're going to want to use flat Earth, because right immediately when people hear that, oh my goodness, that's either crazy or you're promoting a Muslim Islamic Quran concept, because that's one thing the Quran is very clear on, that it is flat Earth situation. Not true at all. The Bible is very clear. You read the whole thing and put it into context, and that's what I still am marveling at pastors, like what Dean said last week. One of the most poignant things he said in the interview, remember, was all of these students from the seminaries that are certified, again, by the education system, to flat out be programmed and to believe that the first 17 chapters of Genesis is all figurative, poetic, and not literal at all. Absolutely, not to be taken literally. And they're training the pastors not to take it literally, and they don't. And that's become, science has become more important than biblical authority, and that's the issue too. See? Or
as we are learning to call it, scientism, the modern religion of the dark world, basically.
Indeed. Well, I don't know if Phil has left us now or not. He's probably saying, well, this has gone crazy now.
No, I'm sitting back and observing. Don't. As long as I've lived and as many times as I've had a chance to dine on my own foot, They say it's an acquired taste, but I just never get used to it. So I try, especially since this is all kind of new to me, I'm just sitting back muted half the time until I've got something nice and clever to say myself.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, Jeff's been a friend of mine for golly years and years. He's listened to the show many times throughout the years, and yeah, I take my hat off to Jim Fetzer for the work he did on Sandy Hook and other things. I mean, the JFK assassination. That's what blows me away. I see the work he's doing now on Parkland, and he's good. I mean, he's doing a good job in getting the word out. Why in the world he can't see that these conspiracies are really just minuscule compared to the big one?
I have a theory on partially what the reason may be, and part of it I think is in his world people are so compartmentalized that they come to just trust and rely on each other's quote unquote expert opinion. This not being in his necessarily field of study, so to speak, he may have gotten, incredibly bad advice, as we've come to understand, and that, along with a bit of just natural stubbornness, which, hey, I'm no saint. How I got into this. I did so kicking and screaming and being entirely resistant to the whole concept. So I can only find it a natural expression for anyone who's being dragged in, as I was, to be a little reticent, so to speak. And I can only pray in those regards because, again, as you just said, the guy does some really good investigative work. He's a bulldog, and especially now, he's hitting the nail yet again on the head, as is being chimed in by thousands of anons who are agreeing with so many of these observations. And I think it's just a matter of time before hopefully we reach a tipping point where people begin to really connect the dots and see that this is a patternistic, state-sponsored agenda of Wag the Dog 2.0. Anyone ever remember seeing that film in the 90s?
Yes.
Now's a good chance to go see it.
Indeed. So we touched on this in the first hour. I kind of want to spend the next 25 minutes until the end talking about this movement that is becoming, getting more and more traction. That's basically saying Hitler was a good guy, because see, you look at, okay, there are Jews themselves who have come in and gone to places like Auschwitz and tried to recreate these massive gas chambers, and they say that it's not possible. And there was no 6 million that were liquidated.
The 6 million figure goes back at least to papers in 1919 or so. 6 million Jews in peril in the in Ukraine, 6 million Jews in peril in Russia. And, there's headlines from all over the world, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in the 20s, European papers, U.S. papers between like 1919 and before Hitler's rise to power. And then all of a sudden, it was exactly 6 million Jews, despite the fact that, at Auschwitz, they said it was like 2.5 or 4, whatever, 2.5, and then they dropped it to 1.5 or something like that. In other words, the 6 million figure never changed, even though there were obvious, we were wrong about this, and so then how come the 6 million? It's always been a round 6 million. So yeah. I'm not saying that there weren't concentration camps. Everybody had concentration camps where we put people based on where they were born and what their ethnicity was, though. And once I wouldn't say, Hitler's a great guy. But yeah, I mean, he was obviously, like you mentioned earlier, he was a tool just like the rest of them. And then afterwards, they decided to scapegoat him specifically so that we wouldn't have to bring up things like Dresden. We had the 71st anniversary of Dresden, I guess it was, just a few days ago, earlier in February.
Right. Yeah. That's an incredible Holocaust there. I mean, that's really what
Literally, yeah.
the
Holocaust
concentration
means the destruction of
by
many
fire.
by fire, and in that case, yeah.
Okay, so
Not to mention cultural psyop. You know, they had nothing but fine china. You know.
well, there's a reason why the number 6 is sacred to the Yiddish
The
Ashkenaz.
right.
Okay, it goes back into the Hebrew letter 6. 6 is actually the word itself is vow, V-A-U. Okay, the icon, the letter, the figure. Okay, the Hebrew letter is vow. It also means the nail. Okay, so when you hear 6, that is they're saying the nail, and they revere the nail. So when you see 6, okay, when the book of Revelation in the Bible talks about 666 being the number of the mark of the beast, that is nail, nail, nail. Those are the nails used on the crucifix,
Right.
to nail to Christ. Now, there's a I might get into trouble for saying this, and that's okay. What else is new? I've been chastised and threatened to be taking a lawsuit. There's a very popular brand of energy drink called Monster. Notice its symbols. There are
Yes,
3 nails.
exactly. It's the Hebrew letter. Yes, I've seen this. Yeah.
666 vow, a monster, a beast.
The beast, exactly.
I mean, come on, it's like, wow, it's right there in your face. And those are looking like 3 little snakes, 3 little serpents that are in that 666 structure. So, you just have to be aware of how important symbolism is to this group, because at their core they are worshiping Satan. They are flat out they want to have the utopian satanic model to rule this world. Now, to that end, I sent Alex this link earlier about this author named Richard Weikart. I invited him to be a guest on the show to discuss his book, Hitler's Religion. This was just a fairly recent book that he researched out called Hitler's Religion, The Twisted Beliefs That Drove the Third Reich. I have this both on hard copy book, as well as on my Kindle. And I'll tell you, there's a apropos quote in his book that I wanted to discuss with him. Personally, he refused to come on the air for whatever reason. That's okay. But on page 107, the head of chapter 5, this is what we read. And I'm going to read this verbatim. Quote, according to Ernst von Weizsäcker, that was the ambassador from Nazi Germany, Hitler appointed ambassador to the Vatican. This was the connection to the Pope, to the Vatican himself. Ernst von Weizsäcker. Heinrich Himmler once, in a personal conversation with Weizsäcker's wife, he said, quote, and this is in her memoirs, her talk, Himmler said we, meaning him and Hitler, they were discussing his friendship with Hitler and their vision of the Third Reich. Quote, we shall not rest until we have rooted out and destroyed Christianity. Let me repeat that. The quote is, and this is in this Ernst von Weizsäcker, who is the ambassador now from Nazi Germany to the Vatican. This is connection to the Pope with Adolf Hitler. His wife had a personal conversation with Heinrich Himmler, which recorded in her diary, in her journal. Quote, Himmler said this about him and Hitler, we shall not rest until we have routed out Christianity. And the book goes on page 107. The security service of Himmler's SS kept church leaders and organizations under surveillance and continually proposed policies to limit and hinder their activities. One of the books in my library is a signed copy of David Irving's book, Hitler's War, and there's actually 3 chapters on the failed assassination attempt there in his bunker. There's a movie that was made on that, and the people that conspired to kill Hitler were Protestant leaders, church leaders, who knew that he was a devil, that they knew that there was a destruction going on. They figured if Hitler could be killed, they could make peace with the Allies. There wouldn't have to be this takeover of the Russian Bolshevik that killed so many millions of Christian Germans, civilian Germans, right? But Hitler survived that Valkyrie assassination bombing plan, and the people that were immediately rounded up and executed were these Christian leaders. And then it took a whole new turn for the worse, because in Irving's book, there's all these are orders, these are copies of papers that the Russians confiscated when they went into Berlin. And so David Irving had the ability and the permission to go to the Russian archives and photostatically copy these Hitler papers. The book is called Hitler's War. The Orthodox Jews of New York. When I was there at the Jacob Javits Center at a book signing, I was there with my agent doing a book signing, and David Irving had a booth right just very close to my book signing booth, and there must have been 500 to 1,000 Orthodox Jews picketing. Anybody that came anywhere near David Irving's book table got spit upon. I mean, and we're talking about big hawk loogies. I mean, these were nasty people that were spitting on it. And wow, it was, I thought, what in the world is this about? So I went and introduced myself to Mr. Irving. He's a member of the UK. He's a British citizen, and he has his British accent. And I said, what in the world are these Jewish people so upset about? And he says, look, I'm not a bloody politician, he said in his British accent. All I do is print history. I'm a historian. I'm not a bloody politician, he said, right? And I said, why? And he says, and so he gave me I was going to buy his book, but he says, the cells are in the toilet. He said, here's a book, and he signed it for me and everything. And it's a great book. I mean, it's just what he said. He lets the papers speak for themselves. And the key things that as I read the book and got to the part about Valkyrie, I got a very, very clear picture from Hitler's correspondence that there were a certain segment of the Jewish people, the Zionists of New York, and all that. There were his best friends. He owed everything in his war effort to this group of Jews. He loved them. In fact, there were specific ones that they're in Berlin and even into Poland that he protected and got out of there. But see, they were focusing on taking out the ghettos, the rank and file Jews who had earlier flat out refused to have anything to do with Zionism. They were rabidly against the Zionism ideal. Now, Hitler was the agent of the Zionists of New York City and the Rothschilds of London. He was just doing their bidding, and his bring Jews out of the areas of war, the war-torn areas of Europe, what's called the Pale of Settlement, Czechoslovakia, Poland, that area. The Zionists, he saw to it with every ounce of his being to repatriate them into Palestine. And there would be, Israel today without Adolf Hitler's work in this regard. There just flat out wouldn't be an Israel today without Adolf Hitler. Now, folks, that is
the 1934 Havara Agreement.
Yeah, and so this is all documented in the book Hitler's War. So here's all these these blind Jews that have been just told that they're by the rabbis to come in and make a religious stand against this evil, person that's saying that Hitler was a friend of the Jews. See? Wow, no wonder they were so upset, because you read this is not what the Jewish people themselves want to paint the picture of Hitler being this monster, this killer of all Jews. 6 million of them, see? Oh yeah. Right then, this was 2002 when I met Mr. Irving, got his book. And since then, like Ernst Zundel, David Irving was convicted in absentia by German courts and was actually extradited to serve a prison term in Germany, like Ernst Zundel did. Man, this guy was like, I'm not a bloody politician. I can still hear him saying that to me. And he's not even about the religion issue. He's just an historian that's telling the truth. So he gets, like Ernst Zundel, gets in deep water. His book, the other story behind the story is that book, Hitler's War. He had, I don't know how many thousands of copies that were taken, and they were labeled hate literature and actually burned. I don't know. I think it was something like 100,000 copies. This is an incredible book. Just go online and just look. Just type in Hitler's War, David Irving, and see the story about that book and how it's so hated. My even talking about this in this language is probably hate speech by the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center, because how dare you even consider that Adolf Hitler was friendly to the Jews? Oh my goodness. But it is what it is. And so here's Richard Weikart's book, Hitler's Religion and Documentation. And I could go on for another hour. I wanted to have Weikart to explain, this whole line of reasoning, how Adolf Hitler was really trying, in his goal was to destroy Christianity. You see, yet while he's doing this to destroy Christianity, his goals are that he's keeping a really cozy relationship with the Vatican. See, does that make sense?
Well, true. One of the things that I've enjoyed so much of in our recent conversations, and we've been picking apart these documentaries by this guy Dennis Wise, and you've pretty much convinced me that Wise is a very clever but active disinformation shill for many reasons, but if not only just because he clearly obfuscates any discussion of Hitler's occultic ties and the fact that he was a theosophist under Blavatsky.
Oh yeah. Yeah, see, this is all part of that other part of the Hitler papers. Its inner circle with Himmler, Goring, Goebbels, all these are theosophists that were handpicked. And look at the connection to Alice Bailey. And yeah, he does show Alice Bailey's theosophy coming as part of the CFR and the United Nations. He does a masterful...
David Icke had theosophy connections as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Exactly. So we can't extricate Blavatsky from her prime student.
That explains Ike turning his story and doing a recant on the Brandon Corey thing.
There you go. Bingo. I mean, David Icke is a shill. I mean, he's putting this out there. Oh, there's reptilian shapeshifters out there. You know what? Yeah, there are. But see, that's something that is indeed the biggest secret. And who's going to believe it? It's all just a bunch of phony baloney hooey. It's not as crazy as a flat Earth, though. Come on, be real.
David, Mike, maybe and Mark Sargent have a little bit in common, maybe. maybe so. So I'm just saying here, the world is crazy. The Bohemian Grove is real. This Marine sergeant that put this out there was indeed murdered. I mean, I know this to be fact. This is not a fictional story.
there was people killed over this, just like Seth Rich was murdered for exposing and leaking out some things of the DNC.
Okay, and we have a new one. And if I may, just take a 60-second sidebar, please, to talk about a CDC worker who has been missing over a week and is now feared dead because he broke a story. He claimed that the flu shot was causing the outbreak. And I just created a new post about this at my labvirus.com blog. Anybody can read about it there. But, we've seen this before. True, you remember when Moshe showed up and said he had this vital information that he wanted to pass on about pathology lab origins of H1N1?
Indeed, and as he was down in California, we tried to get him to hook up with Dr. Deagle, remember? But I said, I was on the phone with him, and he was going to I says, go into the court and file this affidavit until we can get Deagle and others to come up from San Diego and take possession of it. And that is when all hell broke loose. He was,
Yeah, well, he was swatted on live television, and they used an EMP gun to disable his car. They sent a robot up, and he took like 3 full facefuls of pepper spray from this robot before they actually went in and grabbed him. I mean, he was just a machine, this guy.
Yeah. Well, there are people in the CDC, Alex. I got to tell you, back when we were really exposing the bird flu hoax, and luckily that did die away because of our exposing of it. Okay, I know for a fact that we had so many documents out there that they couldn't continue on with their agenda.
Well, we're still waiting for Congress to subpoena Dr. Thompson for his testimony regarding the MMR vaccine, which is the whole premise of the film Vaxxed, that Dr. Andrew Wakefield directed.
So we have this going on, and during this whole issue, I got a scheduled appointment with the Utah State Director of Health, Public Health. He's an older. He was in the 70s, still working, but being the director of the Department of Health of Utah. And it was specifically to say, because they were looking to get a vaccine. Remember the H1N1 or H5N1 bird flu vaccine that was all the rage, remember? So I came in I said, listen, this is not a good thing, because the H5N1 vaccine could very well be causing a pandemic based on the Centers for Disease Control information and the Fort Detrick weapons lab that we had all this testimony of about them recreating the 1918 killer flu, right? So this doctor
thank you, doctors Jeffrey Taubenberger and Terrence Tumpy and pals.
Yeah, so I had all this. I had all this set in about a 50-page dossier file that I was going to give, along with I reprinted the book, The Horrors of Vaccination from 1920, Charles Higgins' book that he presented to Woodrow Wilson, exposing exactly what caused the 1918 pandemic. Right, all vaccination-based, folks. So I went to meet with the Department of Health with 3 other people with me on my side. So here this doctor comes in with his first in command, his aide, who just came from Atlanta in the CDC. Okay, so I laid this out for him. This good, kind doctor, head of the Department of Health, was looking at me. He says, "Oh, this is so ridiculous." I said, "Why is it ridiculous, doctor? Why? This book is absolutely part of the medical record. It's historical." Okay. You know what this doctor said? He says, they didn't even have vaccines back in 1920. It couldn't have been a vaccine-induced disease. I said, wow, really? You really believe that? And then when I says, look, just the flu vaccine itself is like trying to win a lottery, okay? You have all of these computers that has the possible mutations for this coming year, and you try and pick it. It's still one in a million, literally a lottery type of thing, and then you put it out to the practitioners in Walgreens and the pharmaceuticals. They all have it, all their workers inoculated with the flu. The clinics all have it by Labor Day to prepare for the oncoming flu season, and they start sloughing off the virus, and it becomes a self-fulfilling thing. They make the virus. So this guy that's fired at the CDC, that's exactly, he was telling the truth. Because you know what happened? In my meeting,
yeah, his name is, or I'm guessing was, Dr. Timothy J. Cunningham.
Yes. So what's happening, folks? Here's this guy in Utah who's just he just came back to Utah from the CDC. He very quietly stood up and he said to his colleague, the head of the Department of Health, he says, "This man is absolutely correct. He's right on point." And you could have seen, it was like he took out a glove and slapped the doctor across the face, because he was like, you couldn't have been more shocked. What? He says, absolutely, he's absolutely correct. And I'm going on the record of supporting what he's saying, and we got to stop this.
Yeah, the 1918 virus was spread by way of a typhus vaccination campaign that was created to scare people to come get it, because the hospital business was going out of business. People were too well. They needed a new set of clientele. They needed a fresh crop of sick people. And so voila, they whipped up the super poisonous thing, and they didn't know what to call it, so they just named it the Black Death. And some people went out into the Alaskan permafrost in 97 and dug it up and did a Jurassic thing on it, and voila, now we got H1N1, and now we have recombinant viruses that get new genetics every time they hop around. So even if vaccines did work, there's no way they possibly could.
So indeed, so that when I laid that all out for him, it shook him up, and I guarantee you, this doctor, the head of the Department of Health, had a lengthy conversation with ex-Governor Mike Leavitt of Health and Human Services. I guarantee you they had a conversation. Because everything after that, remember there was all that, the made-for-TV movie about, there was Stacy Keach was the Health and Human Services director, and Mike Leavitt came on the air and he says, I wish they got a more handsome actor to play my part. Oh my goodness, this was all just talk about a psyops, preparing the nation for this outbreak, this cause.
Predictive programming.
And it goes back to, again, what Higgins said in his 1920 book. The producers of this vaccine was, the Rockefeller cartel. And this is where Big Pharma really got entrenched with this, we can't have any more of this 1918 killer flu worldwide. Well, no, they don't ever tell you it was their millions and millions of doses of contaminated typhus vaccine that was experimental that did the job. This is part of the Rockefeller / Rothschild machine called the octopus, folks. It's amazing. And so we have all of these vaccine-induced diseases. The people lining up for the flu shots every year get enough of the thimerosal and the mercury to talk about who's crazy.
Oh, not to mention aluminum. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I mean, that plus on top of that, fluoride. They brush their teeth with fluoride every day and get just enough doses to stop the cognitive links in the frontal lobes of the brain, and they call people like me crazy. Alex, it's been 30 years of exposing, 3 decades of this has been one of our main topics on the story behind the story, exposing, really who studied fluoride to begin with. Goes back to Hitler.
Exactly. It was a known mass mind control tool to get prison inmates to be more docile and submissive.
Indeed, the documentation that came out again with the Hitler files, there was they fluoridated up to 1 part per million of sodium fluoride into the Jewish ghetto water supplies before they loaded them onto the boxcars.
And what is fluoride but a toxic byproduct of the aluminum industry?
Aluminum manufacturer Alcoa and Andrew Mellon and Company tied into the Rockefeller cartel. Folks, put the pieces together, connect the dots, and you see that sun god swastika showing up really nice, don't you? The swastika is a sun god, Helios-centric, goes back to the ancient temples of Babylon, folks. The swastikas were all over the ancient Babylonian Baal temples, Baal being the sun god of Babylon, Helios, the Apollo sun god of Greece. That's what it is, folks. It's the same thing. You know, the darkness masquerading as light, Lucifer, the shining one, according to Albert Pike and according to Aleister Crowley. Yeah, this is what it's about. It is a battle of spiritual truth versus lies. End of story. End of story. We got almost out of time. Alex, take us away. Phil, wrap it up.
Thanks for having us on. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Phil, for joining us.
Thanks, Phil.
Really appreciate it.
Good to get to know you. And again, Major, thanks for having us on. Thanks, Jim, for the simulcast. Till next week, folks, I'll let you know what goes on with our meeting tomorrow. It's going to be fun. Oh, my goodness. I should videotape it. It should be good. We'll be well. Be back next week. Same time, same place. Hopefully.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after.